Throughout the last years, and especially very recently, we have seen the arguably biggest achievements in spaceflight since the moon landing. Elon Musk's SpaceX has been providing us with footage that a while ago would have been considered science fiction. The boosters that carry rockets off the ground and into orbit are able to land themselves with pinpoint accuracy, making them reusable for future flights and getting stuff into space less pay to win. If you haven't been living under a rock, you have probably seen these images. But what exactly is getting launched into the skies? Most people know about the moon landings, the International Space Station, or maybe even Starlink, all of which were or still are civil space flight missions. But what else is up there? This is the story of an agency and its history of launching highly capable espionage satellites that were kept so secret that even the CIA became suspicious. The National Reconnaissance Office. In 1945, the US has brought a boost to their rocketry battle pass by convincingly persuading a funny-looking German guy to join their efforts since his guild of bad boys was dismissed. Established in 1960 by President Eisenhower, the NRO's job was to coordinate the US Air Force and CIA's reconnaissance activities. Later, they got promoted to even handle the Navy and NSA's reconnaissance as well. So what was the first thing they did? Since the U-2 plane couldn't fly high and fast enough to not get shot down, they came up with a new idea. Instead of a plane with a camera, let's make a rocket with a camera. So they took a rocket, slapped on a camera and made it fly over the Soviet Union to take pictures of their secret stuff. There was only one issue. How do you look at the photos of a camera that's in space? Obviously, the only solution is to make the rocket poop out a photo bucket that would re-entry into the atmosphere and then scoop it up mid-air by an aircraft. So how did America's greatest enemy look from space? They looked something like this. This is an image of an airfield in the east of Siberia. The first mission of American spy satellites was nicknamed Corona. The impact of Corona on American intelligence gathering was tremendous. They provided more coverage of the Soviet Union than all preceding U-2 flights. For the first time, the United States had a clear picture of Soviet strategic nuclear capabilities. The estimated number of 140 to 200 intercontinental ballistic missiles shrunk to 10 to 25 after reviewing the satellite footage. It is important to stress the level of secrecy that surrounded the NRO. All missions and the existence of the agency itself were classified. In a time without war thunder forums, it took 13 years until the mere existence got leaked through a congressional record in 1973. Another 5 years later, President Jimmy Carter acknowledged for the first time publicly that the United States were performing photo reconnaissance from space. That's 9 years after the moon landing. It took almost a decade after humans walked on the 300,000 kilometer distant moon before coming out with the fact that they also launched a camera into orbit. That's how little the US wanted to talk about it. Fast forward to the end of the Soviet Union in 1991, and the prime reason for all surveillance missions faded. Just 1 year after that, in 1992, the NRO was declassified. Operation Burnt Frost. The secrecy even extends to the fact that no satellite can take the chance of surviving re-entry. In February of 2008, the US Navy launched a SM-3 missile to shoot down an inoperative satellite named USA-193. USA-193 was part of the NRO's future imagery architecture. Just hours after reaching orbit, the satellite lost contact to ground and started deteriorating. Instead of letting the satellite take its natural end, the NRO decided to shoot it down instead. Following the operation, China and Russia criticized the US operation. The destruction of USA-193 came just weeks after Russia had drafted a new treaty to ban space weapons, which was backed by China at a UN-sponsored forum. This treaty would ban the use of weapons against satellites or other spacecraft. The US claimed that the hydrogen gas within the satellite were a danger to environment if it came down. The Russians accused the United States of using the hydrogen gas as a cover-up to test an anti-satellite weapon. They claim that several country satellites which use toxic fuel have crashed into the Earth in the past, but never warranted such extraordinary measures. Furthering this notion, others have speculated that the toxic gas would have likely not survived re-entry regardless, and even if it had, that the risk would be extremely small. Another honorable mention about the history of the NRO is how Donald Trump declassified and published an image showing a failed Iranian Starfield launch in 2019. It shows the aftermath with considerable damage to the platform and vehicles. Obviously, there was an explosion or crash of some sort, likely an explosion of an engine or rocket stage or failed liftoff. The level of detail in the image is incredible and points to one of the NRO's classified KH-11 Evolved Enhanced Crystal Electro-Optical Reconnaissance satellites, also known as Cannon. Specifically, this image was allegedly taken by satellite USA-224. The KH-11 Cannon series was launched in 1976 and the first to use optoelectronic imaging instead of film. This allowed for real-time observations without needing to drop and catch buckets of film. Although being way less cool, the higher fidelity and real-time nature of these satellites produced these kind of images. Some examples from the then Soviet Union include a MiG-29, a Sukhoi-27, the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, as well as chemical weapon storage and combine. Starshield is a business unit of SpaceX, creating purpose-built low Earth orbit satellites designed to provide new disruptive military space capabilities to US and allied governments. Starshield was adapted from the global communications network Starlink, but brings additional capabilities such as target tracking, optical and radio reconnaissance, and early missile warning. Primary customers include the NRO, Space Development Agency, and the United States Space Force. As of 2024, at least 16 Starshield satellites have been launched, with an unknown number of additional satellites being launched as part of classified launch programs. I think it is great to celebrate the accomplishments of the engineers who make the stunning videos like self-landing SpaceX boosters possible. And I have always wondered what exactly it is that they were launching into the skies besides Starlink and flights to the ISS. So I hope I could add at least one tile to this puzzle by shining some light on the reconnaissance satellites that have been above us for as long as spaceflight itself. I originally started looking into this topic because I was curious about the famous Cape Canaveral, its dozens of launch pads and how exactly that little island is structured. And then I fell into this little rabbit hole. Let me know if you like it in the comments, and if you would like to see more about Cape Canaveral itself. Help me out with a like and subscribe. And remember, whenever you look up in the sky always looks back at you.